Hello and welcome to the Massage Chronicles, Tales of Therapy and Transformation. I'm your host, Dorella Cadas. I'm a licensed massage therapist with a passion for healing, wellness, and the transformative power of touch. Each week on this podcast, we delve into the fascinating world of massage therapy. We'll hear inspiring stories from therapists around the globe, discuss cutting-edge research in a field, and explore how massage can play a role in our daily health and well-being. Whether you're a seasonal professional, a student, or just someone curious about the benefits of massage, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and let's embark on this therapeutic journey together. Again, welcome to the Massage Chronicles, and here is your episode. Good morning. I'm here with Jennifer Davis. She is a medical massage therapist, also licensed massage therapist. And to this podcast, the name of the title of the podcast will be Nurturing Recovery: Massage Therapy's Role in Supporting Survivors and Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. Welcome, Jennifer. And I'd like you to take your time and introduce yourself.
Well, hello there. Thanks for having me. Yes, my name is Jennifer Davis. I've been doing medical massage for about 15 years. I'm constantly learning, constantly meeting new people, and I love what I do, and I'm very happy to share what I'm going to do today.
That's wonderful, and thank you for that introduction. I have some questions for you, especially of your background, and impress me of your experience, and that's why I got in touch with you on our channel on Facebook, on our group called Medical Massage for Licensed Massage Therapists. So again, welcome. And the first questions I like to start, it sounds like you work with a lot of survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. How do you approach this work, and what challenges do you face in providing care to these patients?
Well, technically, I got lucky when I stumbled across it. I ended up working on a retired Border Patrol officer that thought my personality would help the girl he was working on adopting that he had rescued. He thought I would really be able to help her. And with my work with PTSD with soldiers, the classes I have taken along there, it really helped me deal with the trauma that she was experiencing as well. So wonderful. I stumbled across it, and it has just blossomed.
Wonderful. And what challenges did you face in providing care for these patients with this trauma?
The challenges end up being finding out what their triggers are, getting them to talking to them in a way that gets them comfortable, so they will share a portion of their experiences, what their fears are, so you know what not to do and what to do, what not to do, what speed to go, what to ask of them, and to let them know that they are in complete control of what happens to their body during that session.
That's very interesting.
Communication is definitely a key.
Communication, absolutely. Can you give us an example of a trigger?
A lot of them end up being the work around the wrists. You have to be careful of work around the neck. Level of dress, that can be an issue. And you being in a dominant position over them, that can be a trigger as well.
Wow, that's very interesting. So all massage therapists out there, please take notes, because this is so important to recognize those triggers. Very, very interesting. What kind of techniques and approaches do you use to help survivors of domestic violence and also rape management, physical pain and trauma, those type of survivors, those type of clients you have? When you are working on them, what kind of techniques you use?
Well, you have to learn to read people, that's for sure. You, depending on their body language, whether they tense up, a lot of them will not refuse. They're not used to being in charge, so you have to learn how to read them. So there are a lot of scenarios where I work on them sitting up or fully clothed. I ask them for a body part so they get the idea that they are in control of what happens there. It's about empowering them. It's about giving them some control over their body so they don't feel so threatened anymore.
That is interesting. Did you ever encounter that, let's say, the first or second session, they want fully clothed, but slowly they start to trust you, and then they end up getting undressed under the sheets and being like a normal client?
It's a rare thing that they end up fully unclothed. I mean, bit by bit is you celebrate your little successes. Giving over and trusting without anything negative happening to them is a big milestone in your mind. So every little bit of every step forward, it's a milestone for them. It's a psychological thing as much as it is a physical thing. So if I can get past their mind that blocks them, that has the trust issues, then I can help them physically. It's the mind and the heart that you've got to address first.
That's wonderful, Jennifer. Now I have a question for you. How do you manage the emotional toll of this work? And what strategies have you found to be effective for self-care?
Oh my, that's a doozy. You've definitely got to find what brings you peace, because you hear some awful stories. You hear some things that you never thought you'd hear. You never thought people were capable of surviving. So you take that home with you, and you find yourself processing that. You've got to find a way to find peace in your own mind, whether it be through your own meditation, your walks, your nature. There's a lot of times I do self-floats. I end up a lot of time at the gym, just working it out, spending times with positive people to try to change the energy running through me, so to speak. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of little things that you can do, but you've got to find what brings you peace. Each person is going to find what works for them to help them clear that, so to speak.
Interesting. Do you find yourself in a situation where the survivors end up telling you the whole story, what they went through, a complete story, or they are reserved telling you the whole experience they had?
It's about 50-50. There's a 17-year-old that I had on my table that unloaded every little detail on the first visit, but she delivered it in a way that was very wooden. It was like she was reading it right off of the police report. No emotion, no feeling attached to it. She just accepted that it happened to her, and there was just no emotion. I'll admit, I was sitting there. I ended up crying, quiet tears, and that she wasn't a hugger. She wasn't used to comfort. There are those difficult cases that they are just happy that you find out later that they were just happy that you listened to them without judgment and that you felt for them. But in the same sense, they don't want your pity either. I haven't run into any of them that outright wanted pity. And that was an interesting thing. I wasn't expecting that through this career.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
I wasn't expecting it to be so honest. I expected, I'm a little bit skeptical in a lot of scenarios. And I expected to run into some people that were attention seekers. Mm-hmm. And they are not looking for attention at all. In fact, usually they don't want to come. Somebody that is caring for them thinks this is important. They don't even realize that it wasn't touch was the bad guy. It's the intentions behind it. That touch isn't just for sexual or violent intents and purposes.
Right.
it can be healing and nurturing. And in order for them to have healthy relationships past their experiences, it's very helpful to know that positive touch all over again.
Wow. Very interesting. Now, as you know, and all of us here know, that would be out of scope of practice for us to actually talk to the survivors and trying to comfort them and actually cross the boundary and become a counselor instead of a massage therapist. Did you ever were caught into a conversation where they're asking you, what should I do, and what was your response and your strategy for that?
I definitely feel that is out of scope of practice for us. There's a lot of scenarios where I can say, well, I've heard of other people that try this technique or this technique to deal with this pain or deal with this healing. I've heard of scenarios, but I am going to suggest that you go talk to your counselor about this to get a little bit more guidance on that, since they are professional in that.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So I will gently push them another direction.
That's good. That's good. Did you find yourself being at one point during those type of conversations where you changing your emotions, start being, because of their experience, start being angry or being sad about it during that session? Did you find yourself in those situations?
I will admit I'm not an angry person. There is no room for anger. There's no room for that energy in their space, in that session. So I definitely wait on the anger, but the sadness can be overwhelming. I mean, we are healers after all. We hate to see the suffering. But you watch how much you let yourself feel, because then they feel guilty too. So you have to watch what you reveal.
That's good. That's very good. And what advice would you give to someone who's considering a career in working with the survivors of all kind of trauma?
I would suggest they test themselves out first. And what I mean by that is work in other high emotional intensity environments.
That's good advice.
Work in hospice, work in cancer units at a children's hospital. See how you process emotions, see where you need to strengthen yourself, see where your weaknesses are, and see if you can handle it, because it is some wear and tear on your soul.
That's wonderful. Very deep, yes. And finally, can you share a particular memorable patient-client success story or experience that has stuck with you with survivors?
The joy I felt when, especially that 17-year-old, that was my first major client, that was my first long-standing client.
Mm-hmm.
When she went from being forced to go to asking to come and see me. When she finally asked. I had seen her 14, 15 times.
Wow.
Against her will, at least that's the impression she left. And when she finally said, hey, are we going to go see Jennifer today? That touched me. It took that long for us to know that I was doing her some good. And when it finally broke through and she finally was seeking out touch and wanted to move forward, that touched me. That was wonderful.
Wow.
Very rewarding.
So how is she doing today?
I think she's doing rather well. She ended up taking some college classes. I don't think she's dating quite yet. Mm-hmm. But she's she's working with kids.
Wow.
And that's great, because kids are going to touch. They're going to be in your space. They're going to.
Absolutely.
And the idea that she's learning how to interact in a warm, nurturing way towards children, that's great. That's a positive direction for her.
That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear. I know that you've been teacher to a massage school. Am I right?
Yes, I've been in a couple of them, yes.
And did you have a chance to talk to your students about your line of work, working with survivors?
Not particularly not as much as I would have liked to.
It was not part of the curriculum.
I was usually teaching beginning classes, building up their own strength, their own confidence, getting fears out of the way in the regular practice. At that point, I always felt like anything that I worked with the survivors might have been too heavy and might have scared them off a bit. So if I was teaching more advanced classes that wanted to branch out, then I would probably get into that a little bit deeper.
Yeah. I was thinking, did you ever consider to actually have a course for many massage therapists out there who would like to take your course, continue education, to take your course to actually learn from you, and you share your gift, your experience, so others can have a real clear path of helping others. As myself, I have a school, a medical massage school in Pennsylvania, and some of my students, quite a few, that's their aim, to work with survivors, trauma. And did you ever consider to actually develop anything like this?
I would definitely consider it. Since it's my passion, yes. My biggest thing is I would want to teach balance as well, because if a massage therapist does only this kind of work, they're going to bring themselves out rather quickly. They have to balance it out with something, clients in situations that are a bit more positive, that doesn't wear out your soul and your heart so much. So finding that balance and teaching the importance of it would be very, very high on my list.
Well, a lot of people will hear this podcast, and please reach to Jennifer. And she's part of our Facebook group, Medical Massage for LMTs. And reach out to her, Jennifer Davis, and collaborate with her. And she will be able to push forward, and if she sees enough interest, she will start something like this to help others. Well, thank you so much for being part of our podcast. And
you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Any last words and encouragement?
Just keep doing what you're doing. It's going to be all worth it. It is. It's going to be rewarding.
It's been a pleasure, Jennifer, having you. And before this podcast started, we actually talked a lot about this medical field of massage, and I'm gonna have you invited back to actually develop more discussions about this field. Thank you again, and looking forward to hear you guys on the next podcast.